That was the first time I ever got baked, and I have not touched it in the 10 years since then. My parents have also never left my uncle alone with me ever again. My uncle is a relatively calm person, with truly no ill will in his body. He is always baked, and so he is always mellow. I have never really seen him get angry, and when people get angry with him, he usually laughs and tells them to chill out. I remember only seeing him genuinely being infuriated once, and that was when my dad barred my uncle from smoking grass in our back garden. My uncle protested heavily, but my dad put his foot down. My uncle still smoked a J in our back garden the next time he came over, he just did it in secret. He still comes by sometimes, as he is actually a great uncle. Despite being under the influence every second of the day, he has never forgotten a birthday, a special occasion or anything. His wife left him a while ago, so I suppose we are the only family he has left. I do feel bad for him when I think about his life in full. As you can assume, my parents are not the biggest fans of my uncle. He is my mother's brother, and although she can tolerate him, my father cannot stand him. He has hated him since the day he let me smoke a J. Although he has never been violent with my uncle, he is very cautious of letting younger family members around him, such as infant toddlers. He has a very good reason to do so, and I cannot blame him. The first time he got violent with my uncle resulted in my uncle getting sent to the hospital, and this incident occurred just 2 days ago. My mother gave birth to my baby brother. The very first day my baby brother came home from the hospital, we were overjoyed. I was holding him and looking into his blue and beautiful eyes, thinking how lucky I am to have a baby brother. My uncle was over as per his request as well as my mother's. My dad protested originally, but my mother assured my dad that it would be okay, they would not let my uncle hold him, just look at him and spend time with the family at such a big moment. My father, kind of realizing that we are the only family my uncle has, agreed. After all, my uncle had never done anything idiotic in a while. The last time he did was well over 3 years ago, when he took mushrooms on the drive over which kicked in while he was there, and even though it was a small dose as he recalls it, it hit him way harder than expected. My uncle proceeded to kind of flip out and took a 2-hour-long bath in our house to calm down. The only problem was, he accidentally turned the tap on his way out of the bath and flooded the bathroom. He did end up paying for the damages, however. It took half a year for my father to concede to him being allowed in the house again. So, my uncle was over, and things were going good. We were all having dinner as a family, talking about the baby. My uncle was talking about how space aliens contacted him in his dream, typical stuff. The baby was asleep in the cot in the living room, and there was no sense of any danger. My uncle was perfectly understanding of the fact that he could not hold the baby. Well, my uncle excused himself to go to the bathroom, and off he went. On his way back to the kitchen, he stopped by the cot to look at the baby. This caught my father's attention, and before any of us could do anything, my uncle took his vape from his pocket, took a drag which lasted about 10 seconds, and proceeded to rip a huge cloud right in the baby's face. This caused the baby to wake up and start crying. I stood up, my mother rushed over to pick up the baby, but my dad stayed seated. My uncle laughed, saying he has inaugurated the baby into the family, and this sentence was all it took for my dad. My dad leapt from his chair and ran at my uncle, pushing him to the ground, proceeding to sock him in the face over and over again. I stood in shock. I had never seen my dad violent before. It felt like my dad wailed on him for hours, when in reality it was like 15 seconds before he stopped due to my mother screaming and begging him to stop while trying to drag him away. Although my dad only spent 15 or so seconds wailing on my uncle, he broke his nose and fractured some ribs, as well as cracked his jaw. The baby was crying, the ambulance was called by my mother, my uncle reported my father from the hospital, which led to my dad being arrested but then bailed out by my mother. My uncle is now pressing charges for assault.